people that don't know you, don't know your background, just talk a little bit more about your background, how long you've lived in the area, and what you do.
A little synopsis on that. I moved to Tehachapi, 1979. My father retired from the Los Angeles Police Department. We moved up there, grew up there, went to school, went to high school, played football and wrestling there. So had a pretty decent, good childhood, fairly blessed. After that, we started a business, got into private security, had a private security business for a little over a decade, almost 12 years. Recession hit, kind of took us out of business, and along with some legislation that was signed by the current president at the time, allotted outside corporations from Europe and stuff to come over and do business here in the U.S., which, you know, they came in and they just underbid us crazy. But Lord blessed me at that time, blessed me with a job. I became a police officer, enjoyed that, did that for a little over a decade. Did a bunch of fun stuff, canine handler and all that good stuff. After that, you know, kept going inside the business, did some security and safety consulting for a while, and then got into currently as a watch commander on a federal law enforcement contract out at Edwards.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about this region do you love so much? I mean, why do you continue to stay here?
In the Kern County area?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's a beautiful area. It's a great place to hike. There's BLM areas where you can ride, especially eastern Kern County, out in District 2. One of the things we kind of want to highlight here in the future to kind of revitalize the area is the OHV aspect, the off-highway vehicles. You have snow. Yeah. You have beautiful sun weather. You have multiple climates. You have beautiful lakes and rivers. I mean, you're blessed to live here. You really are. And I'm exceptionally blessed because I live in Tehachapi, so it's just a great area. I mean, great for your kids. The schools aren't as flooded or overpopulated. A lot of great church atmosphere here. I'm a Christian, so I mean, a lot of great churches get involved in stuff. They participate towards the communities. It's just a beautiful thing.
And specifically that District 2 area, you know, for people that maybe don't spend a lot of time in that region, I mean, what do you want them to know about District 2?
You know, well, District 2, it brings a lot to the table. And District 2, I mean, you know, a lot of people refer to it as the rural areas, Eastern Kern, but you know, inclusive in that is Taft, Maricopa, those surrounding areas, Fraser Park, the south part of Bakersfield. You go out into Tehachapi, up into Roseman, Boron, North Edwards, Cal City, Mojave. It's a huge area, and like I said, with all those things, you have like the OHV aspect. You have, like to me, I'm an avid target shooter. You know, I like to take the family out. I teach gun safety, so we make sure we go out and have a good time, and people are able to defend themselves. So you have areas out there in the desert where you can do that. Mountain Park in Tehachapi, just a beautiful place to hike and just beautiful scenery. I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, I invite folks to come out. You know, it's a great place. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the race. Mm-hmm. So what kind of inspired your run for supervisor, and you know, why is this just a job that you want?
It's a job that, you know, Eastern Kern, I kind of need. Eastern Kern needs. What inspired me was the lack of what's been occurring in District 2. Mm-hmm. And it's not just prior to the last election, you know, when we ran on that, it was actually, you know, the neglect that was occurring in the rural areas, you know, specifically Eastern Kern, Taft, Maricopa, mm-hmm. Fraser Park. Those people deserve representation, and that's my full intent, is to go out there and speak to them during this whole time campaigning. That's what I've been doing. You know, like I said, again, we're blessed in Tehachapi. I know there's a great contingency of folks there, and I know, you know, I'm going to do good in that area, but I need to go out and speak to the folks and let them know in Eastern Kern and these outskirts, you know, you people are heard, you're seen, I know you're here. And to ensure that, you know, I'm going to try to revitalize the area. I'm going to try to make it a place you want to live, not a place where you have to live. Bring back the safety and security aspects of it, you know, revitalize as far as commerce, bring business back to the area. It's important that these people need to know that somebody cares about them. They're going to bring something into their communities.
Well, and I think that's kind of the interesting thing that I saw, you know, obviously with all the drama around, you know, the seat becoming vacant, mm-hmm. there was just a lot of passion, I think, from people who lived there that were just like, we need this representation. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're hearing when you go?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, when I'm out campaigning and I hit these rural outskirts areas, you know, I talk to folks. You know, I don't have all the big money for the signs. I don't have all that big push out there where you see signs of some of my competitors that are sitting in areas that aren't even applicable to the district. You know, so there's over money being spent. I don't have that. So what I'm doing is kind of grassroots. It's old school. I'm going to the people. I'll give you an example. Last week I was standing in front of Albertsons and Taft. I probably spoke to a good 300, 350 people. You know, just handing out cards, talking to them and answering their questions independently and hearing their concerns, hearing their questions, so that when I'm sitting in that seat, I know what I'm going to do first day and how I'm going to start rock and roll. I'm going to come inside there and start getting things done. There are certain things, yes, we do need to focus on, but these people's concerns and questions will no longer go unaddressed. I'm here for them, and I'm going to go to work for them.
Well, and what are you hearing? I mean, what are they saying are some of the biggest issues?
You have huge issues, obviously with jobs. You get into the Taft area, it's applicability according to the area. You get into the Taft area, it's jobs and the revitalization of oil, which is great, one of my attacks. Now you get out into Eastern Kern, where we have a huge lack of law enforcement. And our men and women that are sheriff's deputies, the firefighters, the men and women, they are doing what they can with what they have. You know, there is a hiring process. We are using measured money to hire people and put them through the academies, but you got to look at the big numbers too. When these academies occur, you put 50, 55 folks in there, probably 20, 25 graduate. So this is not an overnight process. You know, being in law enforcement myself, I know that you're not going to be able to put that boot on the ground, regardless of who's wearing it. That boot on the ground is not really going to mean much for at least a year, year and a half, because you have training, you have probation, you have everything you still have to learn. Then you can put them to work. This is not an overnight event. So I want these people to know that we're going to keep pushing that. We're going to keep pushing for the hiring, and then more importantly, the retention of these employees. You got the retention of the sheriff's deputies, the firefighters, Kern County employees as a whole. You know, to keep them here and keep their jobs and keep them in our communities to where we have somebody, again, I use the term, I want to go to work. I don't have to go to work. And that's the mindset. That's what I want to change when it comes to the Kern County employees. So that being said, with Eastern Kern, there's a huge issue with crime. There's a huge issue when people call for criminal activity that is being completely unaddressed. Boron, they sport, and it's not the sheriff deputy. It's just the lack of bodies, you know. And I'm trying to assure these folks it's not going to be an overnight thing, but I do promise you, we will work on hiring and retaining these first responders. So that's what the big thing is out there in East Kern specifically. It is crime.
And so I think from what I'm gathering, I mean, is this kind of one of your core issues that you're running on?
Absolutely.
Improving this?
Yeah.
So then let's kind of explore that a little bit more. So with that kind of retention and things of that sort, you know, how do you propose solving that? Is it a money issue?
Well, everything's a money issue.
Sure.
I mean, when it comes down to it, let's be honest, everything's budget. So what we need to do, we need to get creative. I mean, we can, there's a couple things I would like to venture once I'm inside there. When I first started law enforcement, it was great because it was good pay and there was great benefits. Now, when it comes to benefits now, you have these shared plans, you have these highly paid into plans. So you're looking at these first responders, county employees as a whole, they're paying into these insurance for medical, dental, vision, life. They're paying into these things, and you can probably venture to say probably sometimes 30% or more is going towards their benefits just so their family can be healthy. I would like to adventure or, you know, look at things. Where it frustrates me, and I'll be honest with you, I love our country. I love what we do for folks that aren't from this country. But when we start giving undocumented persons more benefits and more health plans than our first responders, than our senior citizens, than our veterans, that feeds me the wrong way. I cannot tolerate that. I cannot endorse that. I cannot work with a budget where those monies are going towards undocumented persons as opposed to our citizens first. So I think we need to reallocate money. We need to start doing a better shared plan if that's the only thing we can do for our employees, or even look at something where we can actually offer them a full package insurance so that 30% that they're spending on their insurance goes back into their pockets. Now, if they want something electively, that's great, go for it. But I would like to put more money inside their pockets, and that's the retention aspect of bringing people here or keeping people here.
Yeah, keeping them here and not going to Los Angeles, because I feel like we see that all the time.
It is. I mean, you go down there, you start at a pay scale here, and you go down there, and you're sticking 35 grand more a year in your pocket. I mean, that's not a hard decision to make when you're a young guy, young lady, you know, making those first life decisions, or if you got a family. I mean, you have to prioritize. When you're feeding kids and you're feeding your family, the priority is them first. And I respect that from them. I'm not going to take that from them, but we really need to work on keeping them so they don't have to make those decisions.
And so the issue when it comes to money, it always seems that the kind of the age-old problem is, you know, we've got this pile of money, you know, that we allocate it these ways. You know, if we want to improve funding for one way, it either means raising taxes or taking money away from other programs to bring it over here.
Yeah.
let's start first with the taxes aspect. Are you in favor of potentially increasing taxes to
Absolutely
pay?
not.
Okay.
I mean, it's going back to here's Kern County as a whole. What, a year and a half you've been here?
Sure.
Yeah. So you've been here probably long enough to see what the general revenue is for this county, and that's going to be agriculture, and it's going to be oil. One of those industries is being absolutely starved, and that's oil. So what we need to do is we need to work with these state regulatory commissions, these bodies that oversee, the fracking, the drilling, and the processing of oil. We need to work with them. And like I say, these oil companies, they're here to make money. So I can assure you they're dotting and crossing all their I's and T's. So that being said, when we go inside there with all that proper ammunition, we talk to agencies, the regulatory agencies like CARB and CalGEM and the Department of Water Resources, Fish, Wildlife. When we talk to them, we show them, look, everything's covered here. What else do we need to do? I'm going to be the guy that's asking questions. I'm going to be the guy that's going to go inside there. What do I need to do? These guys need new leases. These guys need to drill now. Oil just doesn't affect Kern County. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a big picture. The enormity of it is kind of mind-boggling. You think about it. You have oil that goes into everything. This chair, that counter, the plastics, everything in this room, from gasoline refined all the way down to makeup products. It goes into everything. And that realization kind of needs to be reiterated and really talked about with these people in Sacramento. Because when you minimize oil, you're affecting not just Kern County, you're affecting California, you're affecting the nation. That right there, the oil is the basis of our primary inflation issues right now. So if you think about how important Kern County, this little patch in the country, think about how important that is. So this is going to be an enormous role. Whoever takes this on, myself, when I take this on, this is going to be a hot topic that's going to be highly pursued. I don't want more taxes. I want to make enough tax revenue from oil to where we can dissolve measure money. I don't want that. We need to operate on what we have instead of taxing our folks, which are overly taxed already.
Sure. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but so kind of what I'm hearing is you don't necessarily want to take money away from other programs and allocate them differently. You just want to increase the revenue from ways that the county is already making money.
Oh, both.
Okay.
Because I'll touch a little bit on crime. Yes, we need the tax revenue from oil, absolutely. And reallocation of money. I have a belief with crime. Being in the business, interviewing thousands of people, unfortunately putting thousands upon thousands of people in jail, I have a heart when it comes to talking to these folks. And so when I talk to them, I ask them what happened, how'd you get here, what was the problem? Because I really want to hear. I want them to know I'm just not the guy putting handcuffs on them and transporting them to jail. I want to know what their issues were, and if they're willing to talk about it, hey, God bless them. So what I do is I sit down and I talk to them. And that being said, when you ask, probably most of them are addiction, alcohol, drug addiction problems. You ask to them what really happens, and you have problems that are stemming from childhood, some type of childhood trauma, adults, some type of trauma that occurred as an adult. So with that trauma, that mental trauma, you now have something that's going to occur. When they can't deal with it, what do? They suppress it. And when they suppress those traumas with what? Drugs or alcohol. So now you have somebody who's looking for drugs and alcohol, then they have to buy it. Yep. So when they start buying the drugs and alcohol, you now have a problem at home because things start disappearing because family usually don't call the cops on your own. So then they venture out into the community. Now we have the community being victims of theft so that the same person can support those drugs, can suppress that addiction because of that trauma. So that being said, with crime, we need to start taking a little more of a rock bottom approach to things because anybody can put anybody in jail. And it's really, let's be honest, most of the time when you go to jails these days, some of the folks I deal with who don't want to talk and really let me know what their problems are, jail's an accolade. A lot of people brag about it. I don't get that, but a lot of people brag about it. So that being said, we need to go back and figure out, stop wasting time in jails. Let's figure out their problem. Why do they have this addiction? So when we address this addiction, we address so many other problems. So that's the reallocation of money. So we need to start putting more money into root cause, which is mental health. We need to increase our county services as far as the MET team, the mental evaluation teams. These folks at Mary Kay, we need to really expand on these facilities where people are housed, Good Sam. The hospitals, bringing in more clinically, professionally people who can address these problems, and then start working with the courts on progress with these psychological issues that they are discussing, because putting them in jail is doing nothing. So we got to really go root cause and start getting answers to that.
Definitely. So another kind of issue I want to follow up on, because this kind of touches with it, is homelessness. Obviously, it's a big problem here in Kern County, out in the state of California.
Sure.
Do you have any kind of? Are you running on any kind of platform on how we can solve homelessness here? We kind of touched on it.
We did touch on it.
Yeah.
I mean, what is in the county here, the city, the county? We have resources.
Yeah.
We have facilities that these folks can go to. Now, there's also rules, regulations, and policies for these facilities, and one of those important ones are, when you go into these facilities, you cannot be intoxicated and or under the influence of narcotics. So that really restricts a lot of folks who are going to go inside there. Now you have the homeless problem. The poor person, the poor lady, the poor guy who's laying on the sidewalk because they have an addiction problem. We're still back to the root cause, right? So we need to go back and we need to address what was the problem with that person. Let's start handing out pamphlets. Let's do mobile units. Let's talk to these folks. Let's find out what the issues are, because you're going to have those problems. And here in the city, you can see it. You got folks right on the street. But when you get out into the county area, you have more of a kind of a condensed problem, because they're not laying around about on the streets. You have encampments. So we have a bigger problem now. So now we have waste, we have used or discarded paraphernalia, we have all kinds of things going on, not only trespassing, we have squatters, vandalism to the properties, gaining access, staying in the properties, and you have squatters' rights. So a lot of these homeowners, they're being affected by this too. This is a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, back to root cause, right? We have to start here. We can kick people out. You can shoo them down the street. That doesn't make it disappear. So we need to go back, and we actually have to have actual resolution to these problems. So let's start at root cause. And it goes right back to mental illness. I will bet on it. Once we start putting more effort, more resources, more people on the streets, more of an option for these people to get help, then we're going to start seeing differences.
Definitely. So kind of moving a little bit more about to the race itself, why do you feel that, obviously there's 6 people in this race. Why do you feel like you're the best candidate for the job?
It's what I bring to the table. You'll hear I'm not a politician, I'm not this,
Yeah.
And I'm not, I'm a cop, I'm a businessman, and these are 2 huge aspects that are affecting our county, right? You have business decisions that need to be made, and then you have safety and security issues all over the county. So that's what I'm going to bring to the table. Those are our primary problems right now. So that's my whole intent, is to bring in this mindset and to be a voice too. I'm not up there to appease. I can listen to, and we can discuss absolutely professionally, sit down with the other supervisors and say what would make this best for Kern County as a whole. But if it's not going to be best for Kern County as a whole, specifically the 2nd District, I'm going to voice myself. There's no puppet strings on me. They're going to hear what the opinion of the constituents of the 2nd District are, and I'm going to relay that to them. So I'm going to be the mouthpiece that they've really been lacking for the last almost decade. So, that's what I'm going to bring to the table.
Well, and that kind of leads me into my next question. In the time that I've been here, it seems like a lot of decisions with the board, there's not a lot of conflict, so to speak. A lot of the votes kind of go along the same line. And I think from hearing from people, there's kind of this frustration, especially from people that maybe feel disenfranchised, that why aren't these leaders pushing more for the things that they believe in instead of going along to get along?
Yeah.
You mentioned you're willing to go against, the other supervisors. Do you worry about potentially being like a black sheep on the board?
And I've been asked that. And it's not that I'm going to be a problem maker. It's not that I'm going to be the black sheep. I'm going to express the voices of the 2nd District and Kern County as a whole. I'm not going to go up there and agree just to agree so that we can break for lunch or we can get home. These aren't things that we're going to debate this. We're going to figure out why this would be a poor decision or a good decision. And I'll give you a great example. I am a Republican. This is a nonpartisan position, but I am a Republican. Sure. But we did have the Dominion voting machine.
Yep.
When that came up as topic, I was really, and I went to those meetings and I spoke against, because in my opinion, those are flawed systems. It's a flawed machine. And so when I spoke on that, and I see, and I understand it's not a partisan position, but you need to voice yourself on those. When they sat down and they voted on it, there wasn't really an expression or an example of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what the people needed to hear. If you could have gave me something, sitting in that audience, if you could have gave me something that would have made sense, I could have thought about it and go, oh, you know what, I didn't think of that. But there was nothing like that. It was okay, this is what's good for the gander right now, so I'm going to go ahead and make this vote a yes. That was a poor decision. As leadership, you need to express yourself and say why. Have accountability. Because in this role, if you don't have accountability, you don't belong in that dang seat.